All right, so I wanted to talk about meristematic growth today and link that with some of the frost freeze issues we've had as of late. All right, so here's some kale. All right, you notice if it's growing pretty straight up. And then here in the center would be the apical meristem. And right, and so it'll just keep growing straight up like this until it does one of two things. It bolts and produces a flower, or until I was to remove the center part. I could just come in here and pinch out the center. And so I kind of had to do that on some of these others. Right, so you'll notice here, right, so here's one it's flowered, right, and so it's got a lot of this lateral growth on it that some folks will call suckers. Right, if I come up to this one, see how much more branched it looks. Right, and so that happens. Right, here's one too. So notice how much more branched. So you notice right here at my finger, right, where I've pinched that top out. So when you pinch the top out, you take that apical meristem out, it releases the dominance of that apical meristem and allows more side growth to happen. Right, and so this kind of gets into pruning and a lot of things with plants really. If you take out the top, if you pinch the top out, that'll make a plant more bushy. And if you don't pinch the top out, it'll make it grow taller but less bushy. And so let me show you kind of how this would pair into something like tomatoes. And so here's one of my tomato plants, and I hope y'all can see this somewhat well. And so you've got the plant itself growing here, and then right here, right, is a little side growth, right, and then if you come on up, right here would be the apical meristem. So if I was to pinch that out, that top part out, that would allow these lateral shoots to grow more quickly. A lot of people call these suckers, again, in tomatoes. So if you were to pinch the top out, these would grow more quickly and the tomato would be more bushy. What I'll probably do is I'll come in and I'll remove this lateral growth so that more of the energy goes into growing up and eventually into growing tomatoes. Well, with this last freeze we had, if you ended up getting a lot of leaf damage, as long as you either still have some meristematic tissue on the lateral growth or in the center, your tomatoes will probably be okay, right? I mean, eventually you want to cut off any of that necrosed tissue so that it'll turn black and it'll start to rot, and it makes it more susceptible to other kinds of diseases. So you want to remove that. But as long as you get nice green growth from the meristem tissues, you should, especially this early, you should have fine tomatoes. It's just stunted them a little bit. Right, here's another example. Right, so it's just in a different form. Right, so in this one, the meristem tissue would be there, and so if I leave that, it'll just grow up and produce. And if I pinch that out, it just gets more bushy. Right, so you can use that idea. I mean, you can use that idea even for grapes. Right, so what we do with grapes is we'll have one essentially stem that has one meristem at the end. You let that grow out long, and then you pinch it off, and you get the lateral growth. And so some folks will talk about cordons and spurs and all that kind of stuff. It's just different terminology, but the exact same thing.